If you legally own a firearm right now, there is a real chance that a rule you never voted on, never heard debated, and never agreed to has quietly moved the line on what's legal and what lands you in federal prison. I'm not here to scare you. I'm here to make sure you understand what's actually happening, because the people who should be explaining this aren't. Let's get into it. I'm a lawyer. I work in the space where gun law, self-defense law, and federal regulation collide. I've watched the ATF rewrite definitions, shift enforcement priorities, and issue rules that carry the weight of law without going through Congress. And I've watched good, law-abiding gun owners get caught in the crossfire, not because they were criminals, but because they didn't know the rules had changed. That's what today is about. Here's something most gun owners don't fully appreciate. The ATF, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms and Explosives, is a federal regulatory agency. And like most federal agencies, it has the power to issue rules. Administrative rules. Now, a rule isn't a law passed by Congress. Your representatives didn't vote on it, the president didn't sign it in the traditional legislative sense. But once it clears the regulatory process and gets published in the Federal Register, it carries the force of law. Violate it, and you're not facing a fine or a misdemeanor, you're facing federal felony charges. That's the first thing I need you to understand. The ATF doesn't need Congress to change what you're allowed to own, build, modify, or sell. It can shift those lines on its own. And it has. Over the last few years, the ATF has issued several significant rules that redefine things gun owners thought they understood. We're talking about definitions that had been stable for decades. What counts as a firearm, what counts as a receiver, what triggers the requirement for a background check, what modifications cross the legal line. Here's the catch. When the ATF changes a definition, it doesn't just affect future purchases. In many cases, it affects what you already own. That suppressor, that pistol brace, that parts kit sitting in your safe. If the definition changes, the object doesn't change, but its legal status might. And that's where ordinary gun owners become exposed without ever doing anything wrong. Let me give you the clearest example of how this works. The ATF's pistol brace rule is one of the most important regulatory actions in recent gun law history, and one of the least understood by the people it actually affects. For years, pistol braces were legal accessories. The ATF itself issued opinion letters saying that attaching a brace to a pistol configuration firearm did not automatically make it a short-barreled rifle under the National Firearms Act. Millions of gun owners bought braced pistols based on that guidance. Manufacturers built an entire product category around it. Then the ATF changed course. The agency issued a new rule that said, essentially, that many of these configurations do qualify as short-barreled rifles. Under federal law, possessing an unregistered short-barreled rifle is a felony. We're not talking about a technicality. We're talking about up to 10 years in federal prison. So here's what that looked like in practice. You bought a legal firearm, you put a legal accessory on it, ATF said it was fine. Then, years later, the ATF said it was no longer fine. And suddenly, millions of Americans were potentially holding unregistered NFA items in their homes. The rule was challenged in court. Some courts blocked enforcement. The legal fight is ongoing. But here's what matters for you right now. The pattern is real, the mechanism is real, and the next rule that works this way may not get the same legal challenge fast enough to protect you. I hear this constantly. The ATF can't just redefine something that's been legal forever. That's unconstitutional. Courts will throw it out. And sometimes they're right. Courts have pushed back on ATF overreach. The bump stock rule was struck down by the Supreme Court. Other rules are being challenged right now. The legal system does sometimes work as a check on agency power. But here's what people miss. A court challenge takes time. We're talking months, sometimes years. During that window, the rule is in effect. Law enforcement can act on it. And if you're the person who gets caught in that window before a court steps in, it doesn't matter that the rule was eventually thrown out. You're still dealing with a federal case. The legal process is not a guarantee of protection in real time. That's not pessimism. That's how the system works. Let me give you something practical. First, stay current on ATF rule changes, not through social media rumors, not through forums, through primary sources. The ATF publishes its rules and guidance. If you're a serious gun owner, you need to know when something new is coming and what it says. Second, if you own any firearm, accessory, or parts configuration that's been the subject of regulatory attention in the last 3 years, get clarity on where it stands legally today. Not where it stood when you bought it, where it stands now. If you have any doubt, talk to a firearms attorney. A 1-hour consultation is cheaper than a criminal defense. Third, understand the difference between a rule that's been blocked by a court and a rule that's been permanently invalidated. These are not the same thing. If a rule is blocked pending litigation, it may still be reinstated. Blocked does not mean gone. Fourth, document your good faith compliance. If you make a modification to a firearm to bring it into compliance with a new rule, keep records of what you did and when. In the event of a legal dispute, demonstrated good faith effort matters. And fifth, this is the one most people skip. Know what you own. That sounds obvious. It isn't. Many gun owners have inherited firearms, bought parts kits, or assembled builds without fully verifying the legal classification. If something is sitting in your safe and you're not sure exactly what it is under federal law, find out. I want to be honest with you about the bigger picture. The regulatory environment around firearms has become genuinely unstable. Rules are issued, challenged, blocked, reinstated, and litigated over years. The definition of what's legal shifts based on who controls the agency and what guidance they choose to enforce. That doesn't mean you give up your rights. It means you take them seriously enough to protect them properly. The people who are most at risk are not the ones who know too much about gun law. They're the ones who assume the rules they learned 5 years ago still apply today. The ATF has the power to issue rules that carry the force of federal law. Those rules can redefine what's legal to own, including things you already possess. Legal challenges sometimes work, but they take time, and that gap is real exposure. The best protection is current knowledge, legal clarity, and documented compliance. You did not become a gun owner to become a felon. You bought a firearm legally, you've handled it responsibly, and you want to stay on the right side of the law. That's exactly why you need to understand that the law itself is a moving target right now. The ATF is not going to send you a letter when the rules change. There's no notification system. There's no grace period announcement that reaches every gun owner in America. The burden of knowing falls on you. That's what this channel is here for. If you found this valuable, subscribe, because this kind of thing happens quietly. A rule drops, the clock starts, and most people don't find out until it's too late. I'm going to keep covering it so you're not in the dark. Stay legal. Stay informed. And remember, knowing the law isn't just knowledge, it's protection.